Okay, so let's dive in. We're looking at some really interesting sources you've brought, all centered on understanding and maybe beating self-doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And they take us on this fascinating path right into the brain, don't they?
Mm.
Specifically looking at the dopamine system.
Right? Dopamine. So our goal here, our sort of mission, is to get how that system shapes how we see ourselves, especially when when they don't go to plan.
Mm-hmm. And crucially, to see if there's a shortcut offered in there, something to help manage those really tough moments of self-doubt.
Yeah, those moments. So the sources really hammer home this point that the dopamine system, it's not just about feeling good, is it? It's framed as the brain's main reward system.
Like the single currency almost. It drives wanting, craving, anticipation, or general motivation, really.
And what struck me was the focus on anticipation. That seems key.
It really is. The sources emphasize how just the expectation of getting something good can fire up more dopamine than, actually getting it.
Huh. Like those studies they mentioned, where people chose brain stimulation tied to wanting over the actual pleasure,
Precisely. It points to this fundamental seeking system, a hope system, you could say.
which then leads to this concept they call the danger of hope. That sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It does, initially. But think about their example, the one with the kid and the ice cream.
Yeah.
You promise ice cream, dopamine spikes, they're excited, anticipating.
Okay, yeah, relatable.
But then, uh-oh, the store's closed. And that dopamine, it doesn't just go back to normal, it actually dips below where it started.
Ouch. So you feel worse than if you'd never even thought about ice cream.
Exactly. And that's the direct link to self-doubt, according to these sources. When our prediction fails, the ice cream isn't there, the brain flags it as a prediction error.
Makes sense so far.
But the feeling isn't just, bummer. The sources suggest this can kick off a process to almost punish the parts of the brain that made the wrong prediction.
Wait, hang on. So the brain tries to sort of blame itself for guessing wrong? That sounds intense.
It does sound intense. But the idea is it's trying to refine its predictions.
But isn't hope, like, essential? Doesn't anticipation drive us? How do they square that danger part?
Good question. It's not about not hoping, I think. It's more about understanding the neurological price tag when hope doesn't pan out, especially when the stakes feel high.
Okay.
And they pivot pretty quickly from that mechanism to the psychological side. Remember the anecdote in the source
Mm-hmm.
about losing that piece of paper during the ritual?
Ah, yeah. Losing the paper itself was minor, right? A simple failed expectation, the ritual would go smoothly.
Exactly, a tiny error. But the internal dialogue wasn't, oops, wind.
No, it was straight to, how could I be so dumb? I'm almost 50. I messed up. That jump felt really significant.
That's the crux. That's where this mechanism fuels self-doubt, and importantly, where we might find a way to push back, to beat it.
Okay.
That small predictive failure, losing the paper, it wasn't kept small. It ballooned into what the sources term a depressive cascade.
Right, expanding the crime. From just losing paper to this big global judgment, I'm useless, something's wrong with me.
Yeah, that's the too much learning from failure they talk about.
Yeah.
Overcorrecting in a really damaging way.
So instead of just linking the error to the specific event the paper got lost, the interpretation just snowballed. It became about me, not the paper.
Precisely. And that is where they bring in the actionable advice. The tool.
Okay, the shortcut.
Kind of. They borrow this idea from, like, legal systems or even good parenting.
Yeah.
The principle of innocent until proven guilty, but applied to yourself. And crucially, bind the error to the minimum crime.
Minimum crime, what does that mean exactly?
It means when that flood of self-blame hits after a mistake, you consciously ask, what is the absolute smallest thing I am actually responsible for right here, right now?
Ah, okay. So zoom right in on the specific mistake, the situation itself. Don't let it bleed out into a verdict on my whole character or ability.
Exactly that. Give yourself that same presumption of innocence you'd probably give someone else. Argue the case for yourself, not against. The idea is to shrink the problem back down to just that minimum error. Stop it from triggering that whole cascade that unravels your self-worth. That's the strategy proposed for counteracting that overlearning tendency and beating back self-doubt.
Okay. So wrapping this up then, it really feels like our own internal wiring, especially how dopamine handles anticipation versus reality. That plays a huge role in how we beat ourselves up when we mess up.
Absolutely. That danger of hope isn't just about things not working out externally.
Yeah.
It's about how the brain processes that mismatch, that failed prediction, which can then spiral into harsh self-criticism.
Which really leaves us with a potent question, doesn't it? If reacting to disappointment by blaming yourself is basically taking a tiny slip up and blowing it up into this massive indictment of you, how often are you maybe doing that without even noticing?
Mm-hmm.
And how differently might things feel next time if you consciously tried to apply that minimum crime idea, just bind the error to itself?
Definitely something to think about. Maybe something for you to explore on your own.